I just saw this on the Dallas Wings Twitter account. Dallas Wings, of course, out of the WNBA. Chelsea Dungy's birthday.
Happy birthday, Chelsea.
That's right, former Razorback star, first-round pick of the Dallas Wings, and they're starting their season later this week. So go get them, Chelsea, and a very happy birthday to one of the greatest Razorbacks in any sport that has ever played here at the University of Arkansas. All right, we're moving over to Major League Baseball right now, and all of you know how I feel about the Cardinals. So maybe you're a little surprised about bringing on a Cardinals reporter onto this very show today. Katie Wu covers the St. Louis Cardinals for The Athletic, and you got a big road trip that starts today in Milwaukee, then moving over to San Diego. Katie, appreciate your time today. How are you?
Gentlemen, good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me on.
You got it. So this is, what are your impressions of St. Louis, of the Cardinals right now? I mean, this is, and look, there have been other teams that have had more ups and more downs as far as roller coasters go. I could think of the Mets. I could think of the Dodgers, the Yankees. But it's been a little bit of a roller coaster for the Cardinals. Initially some down, and right now, I mean, they're playing the best baseball in certainly the National League Central, maybe the National League overall. What are your impressions of this first month?
You know, I think this first month was definitely a roller coaster just in terms of how the season started. I think that from the Cardinals front office perspective, they put together a really solid offseason. They had a lot of players slotted into roles that would fit them perfectly. And then we kind of saw what would happen really early on if one of these players was hurt or where the holes were. I mean, starting out the season without Harrison Bader in center field, they had 2 starters on the injured list as well from their pitching staff. They had a lot of young guys that they could slot in, but it definitely wasn't the lineup they envisioned. And then Tyler O'Neill went down, and it really became the lineup that they didn't envision. So I think part of the ups and downs early on was just trying to figure out who can we slot in, who's ready, who can perform, who can fill the gap until our roster is healthy. Now, over the last week or so, they have gotten that healthy roster back. Bader's back, O'Neill is back, Yachty is back. Their rotation looks great. And all of a sudden, we're kind of seeing the A lineup they envisioned here. And the result is them surging back into the winning column and performing an MLB best 13-4 over their last 17 games. It's definitely, you can kind of see it all coming to fruition. And I think that's why this upcoming road trip that you mentioned to Milwaukee and to San Diego, 2 of the biggest National League threats this year, is so important. I think we'll see a lot about how this team actually looks, how they're shaping up, based on the next 6 games.
Well, and the old guys are getting it done right now. You know, it's incredible to see Adam Wainwright working this deep into games of late. He threw 2 out of the last 3 starts. He's pitched into the 9th inning, and you wouldn't expect this. You wouldn't expect this from anybody at his age, but right now he's pitching as good as anybody else in the major leagues. And like you said, again, a couple of starters back in the rotation now, so. You think starting pitching is right now maybe at the top of the list for the Cardinals?
It's almost poetic, right, that Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina are 2 key factors once again in this team that has playoff, hopes and aspirations. It strikes me very, very funny that the Cardinals have 2 ace caliber pitchers. One is 25 and Jack Flaherty, and the other turns 40 this August in Adam Wainwright. But I think if you ask any Cardinal fan, they're not surprised. This is exactly the kind of situation Adam Wainwright would rise to and perform and defy expectations and kind of write his own narrative. He really likes to, he said after Sunday's win, he really likes to outperform expectations, and he's doing so across the board. And, doing it with Yachty is, I think, just the cherry on top to St. Louis fans. I think the pitching staff, Carlos Martinez did just go down a couple hours ago with an ankle sprain. He tweaked it, celebrating Jack Flaherty's home run. Unfortunate. He pitched through it in his last start this weekend. Was confident he wouldn't miss any time, but obviously things got a little worse. So hoping to have some more updates this afternoon. They'll bring up Johan Oviedo, who they're really high on. He's going to fill in and spot start like he's done before. Miles Michaelis is leaning towards a comeback. He could be back as early as the end of the month, maybe even sooner, depending if things go well. But I think even without Carlos, who has been pitching very well and very consistent, might I say, it's been a big turnaround for him this season. That pitching staff is going to be the catalyst of this Cardinals team and if they're going to be successful or not. And it's going to be riding on guys like Jack and Waino to carry that.
Well, and in the next couple of games, you get a couple of starts for Kim, and I know Gant is going to be throwing against Milwaukee. Getting Kim back from the injured list has to be huge. just especially now with Martinez going down for a bit. But I mean, these aren't the 3 games that are going to decide the season. But to see Kim pitching against Milwaukee, against Peralta, Gant versus Woodruff, like these next couple of games are going to be really interesting based upon the starting pitchers.
Oh, absolutely. And I think both pitchers, both KK and Gant, have 2 narratives they'd like to switch around. I think Kim would like to go deeper into ball games. I know he's coming back from the injured list, and he's probably not as stretched out when he first got back, but, now he's had enough time where he should be able to go 6 or 7. And I know, I think John Gant's been a very formidable fifth starter for this team. If he can control the walk count, which he stresses every time that he needs to fix, that's a really, really strong back end of the rotation. You throw Oviedo in there, too, and there's a lot of good options. So you're absolutely right. I think what KK and Gant can do against Milwaukee, sure, it's an early May series, but these games matter, especially in a division as tight as the NL Central is supposed to be. If the Cardinals want to establish themselves as the front runner here, as most publications kind of peg them to be, not by a lot, of course, it's going to really kind of rely on what their back end of the rotation can do as well. It's just as important as going 1 and 2.
Well, and Yadi's been great when he's been healthy, he's already hit 5 homers in 79 plate appearances. I mean, he's really smacking the ball. He's always going to catch well, but I'd be nervous if I was a Cardinals fan or if I was Mike Schilt or anybody with the Cardinals, if I'm dealing with a 38-year-old catcher who had a strained foot tendon. Like that, anything dealing with the legs and catchers, I'd be nervous about. Are there any thoughts about, it's not that he came back too early, but that this could be sort of a nagging thing that he's got to deal with for the rest of this season, and it's only May?
I'm not sure about that. I think it's definitely something that's on their radar, but if Yadi has proved anything in his should-be Hall of Fame career, it's his extremely high pain tolerance. He takes good care of himself. He does not think that there's anything wrong with his age, and he's still going out there and performing above expectations every day. He's never going to take himself out of the lineup. It's going to be very rare that you give Yadi an off day. But the Cardinals have what would be a starting catcher in almost any other organization, and Andrew Knizner backing him up. So if they have to go without Yadi like they did for a couple weeks, Knizner has done such a great job in filling in. The way he commands the pitching staff, he's so intent with communicating with his pitchers, both the starters and the relievers, and making sure everything is in place. And you see that respect. When you see starting pitchers shaking off their catcher, that's actually a good sign. It means that they have that communication and that trust to keep going with each other. They don't feel compelled to kind of go with what the catcher is calling. So I was really impressed. You never want to see anything happen to Yadi. He's one of the greats to ever play this game. But if he does need a day, or God forbid, he does go back on the injured list or something happens there, having Knizner is just as important because they can relax a little bit in knowing they do have another starting catcher caliber behind the plate.
Katie Wu joining us here on Halftime. Katie, I want to ask you about Matt Carpenter. When you look at one of the most productive hitters for the Cardinals in the past several years, but Katie, just looking at his batting average, it slowly started to decrease each and every year. And I'm curious from your standpoint, just since you've covered the Cardinals for a period of time here, and kind of bringing this into what happened with Albert Pujols with the LA Angels earlier this week. We'll get to that in a second. But do you think Matt Carpenter, maybe this year, next year, could meet the same fate as an Albert Pujols batting 111 right now?
I don't know. I know that Carp is in a contract year. He has been relegated to a bench role, but he brings a lot of value in the clubhouse that isn't really measured on the box score. And I guess I'll be the first to say, and I think he will too, that production matters. That obviously that batting average is not going to cut it. But seeing him going out and accepting that pinch hit role where he's basically a late inning power bat, and he's pranked a couple of 3-run home runs in that role already, I think that's been encouraging. I'm not quite sure where the Cardinals go with him next year, but I know that they really value him in the spot that he is right now. They now have 2 left-handed bats off the bench with Justin Williams, which they haven't had in a very long time. And yes, I understand that Carpenter is very loved by the Cardinals community, but it's also a very controversial playing spot because it seems like it's either a base hit or a strikeout, and we can go on and on about what Carpenter can do, but I really like him in this pinch hit role. I think that he brings some veteran leadership, some experience. He has the respect of everybody in that clubhouse and the organization. And just because he's not putting up the numbers that he used to in his career, I don't really necessarily think that's why he should be written off. I get questions all the time. When are the Cardinals going to add a veteran power bat off the bench? And I think to myself, well, they have one, right? So, I don't know. I would hope that whatever happens in Carpenter's career is treated a little bit better than how Albert was. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and these guys know that too. So it's kind of tough to say.
couple more minutes here with you, Katie. We got two guys text in the exact same question. Then we'll ask you about Albert Pujols before we wrap this up. Robert and Van Buren, Zach and Paragon both want to know the status of Miles McCollum. Is he set to come back here anytime soon?
Yeah, so Miles is he's set for 3 rehab starts in AAA Memphis. He did 1 already. We talked to him after. He threw a little bit under 4 innings. All 4 pitches were working. Really liked his changeup. I believe he's slated for 1 in the next couple of days, and the last one is either the 15th or the 16th, so this weekend, and then they'll reevaluate. Miles says he's feeling great. He obviously hasn't pitched since the 2019 playoffs, so it was really exciting to see him get on the mound and perform in a game, even though it was just a rehab assignment. And the Cardinals are optimistic that things are going well. He feels great, so my best guess is to check in after the weekend, after this Padres series, and we'll probably have a clearer idea of when Miles comes back.
All right, Albert Pujols. Obviously, we know what he done, what he means for the St. Louis Cardinals. I grew up a Pujols fan and still am. So with the news of him being released from the LA Angels, and then there's rumors circulating that he may be playing for the Dominican Republic in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. What do you think the chances, if any, that he may re-sign with the Cardinals to wrap it up where it all began? Maybe it's a 1-year deal, something. I know I hear Phil in the background saying no. What do you think?
I hear a lot of no's too.
Okay, well there you go. So what do you think Albert Pujols should do? Because I personally think wrap it up where you finished it, because that's where we saw his greatest years was in the red and white for the Cardinals.
I see it, and I try to understand the fans' perspective, but I can't necessarily come at it with the fans' perspective. And I know that a lot of them are probably already screaming at their radio, saying, "No, we want Pujols. Don't say it, Katie." But here's the thing: is I'm not quite sure if they have a roster spot available for him. If there was a universal DH this year, I think it would at least be considered. And I mean, obviously, for so many reasons, it should be. What Albert has done for baseball, for the Cardinals organization, it cannot be stated. I cannot sum it up correctly and to give it enough credit as it deserves. And everybody knows that. I think that's the name that's just as synonymous with St. Louis Cardinals as Yachty and as Wainwright. This is another Hall of Fame caliber guy. I'm not sure if there is a place for him on the roster if the reports are true regarding him wanting to play every day. I mean, they're not going to uproot Paul Goldschmidt from first base. Now, if he would be willing to accept a bench role, and again, I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't heard anything that would say yes or no. Part of me thinks, well, the Cardinals don't really use their right-handed bench players that often anyway, so maybe. But, I have no idea, honestly. If there's one thing I've learned in my 6 weeks on the beat is that nothing will surprise me. So I'm never going to say never, but it's hard to think kind of where he would slot in. But I'm sure wherever he ends up, I'm hopeful that, he can be sent off, whether it's the end for him, whether he retires at the end of the year. I just hope that he gets the recognition he deserves. He's truly a generational player.
Katie, appreciate your time. Really great stuff. You did great work at The Athletic. Enjoy the rest of the season. Hopefully we can have you on again during this season talking Cardinals.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks so much.
You got it. That's Katie Wu covering the Cardinals for The Athletic. And you always hear from me. It's worth the subscription if you're a big sports fan. It's also worth checking out Wheels RV in Springdale now that the weather is going to turn and get a lot nicer sometime soon, right? Explore Arkansas in a new RV from Grand Design, Forest River, KZ, Heartland, Keystone, or Alliance. All the best brands, and you find the best prices at Wheels RV. Also have the lifetime warranty on every new RV purchase, plus the mobile service shuttle keeps you camping. Get into Wheels RV and find out why they've been voted best RV dealership in Northwest Arkansas. 5 miles west off the interstate, that's exit 72. Seek, explore, discover with Wheels RV. There's no roster spot for Albert Pujols, or the Cardinals, or their triple or double A teams. You're going to get off my lawn next.